Hey everybody, ramble time. Been taking stock of my life. Been working hard and making decisions of where I want to go in my life, and a lot of what I see as per my job is confidential. I can't really get into the nitty gritty of all of it. You know, I speak in generalities a lot here on YouTube, but I've got one that I am nowhere involved with this one, but it pretty much it sums up my feeling that we have sometimes an injustice system rather than a justice system. Now, the story I'm going to tell you is about a man, an old man now, named Josh Hatcher. Now, Josh Hatcher now walks around with a walker bent over, real old man, and he's got plenty of health issues, not the least of which are mental health issues, because Josh Hatcher had a learning disability from a very young age. And he only ever attained in his childhood a third grade reading level. Which is why the system being what it is, he would find himself unemployed and, kicked to the dregs of society in Omaha, Nebraska in the 70s. And by the year of 1977, where all of this went down, he was addicted to drugs and stealing things in order to feed his drug habit and pay the rent, and just to live he had to steal because he couldn't find work. He was a drug addicted person with very low mental acuity. That's just the way it was, and living on the streets. So one day, this is by his account, he had a stolen car radio that he was trying to fence, and he was desperate to get back on his drugs, had run out, had no drug money, right? His account of this. And so he decided to steal something else because no one would take his stolen car radio. So he saw that a delivery truck had stopped and left the back doors open. This was a UPS truck back in 1977, December, the Christmas rush. Right? So he decides he's going to try to steal a box from the back of the UPS truck, find out what's inside of it. Maybe it's something he can sell for drugs. His account. So he said that he stole a box off the back of the truck, and as soon as he did, a white pickup pulls up, and a man yells at him, "Hey, boy," which startles him, and so he drops the package, and he runs away. Right? So the person who stopped, the person in the truck, got out of his truck and helped the delivery man get all the packages that had been strewn about straightened up and picked up, and so had spent some time helping the delivery man. Are you okay? All that stuff. Now, this part is actually left out conveniently from a lot of the accounts that you would see if you were to pull up this case, that the police officer stopped to help the UPS man. But it's important. It's important. Just trust me. 4 blocks away, having gotten away from the scene, Josh Hatcher happens upon the same man in a white truck. The man had driven around to find him, tracked him down, jumped out of his truck, and ran over to beat him up. And so Josh Hatcher was getting beat up, and in the process of this, the man who was driving the white truck had a revolver, and it came out in a tussle. Josh Hatcher was fighting for the revolver, goes off twice, man falls dead. Josh Hatcher checks his wallet to see who he was. He is a police officer. That's the account that you would get from Josh Hatcher. Now, 20 years ago, about 2 decades after this fateful night, a newspaper ran the story of Josh Hatcher because he had been appealing his case for a while. And the newspaper put in different elements to the story and actually said that after fighting for the gun, Josh Hatcher ran away, then ran back and shot the deputy, knowing full well that he was a police officer. Which, that would be a very big change of events. And you could probably ascertain, which version of the story was true based on the trajectory of the bullets that entered the police officer's body. Was it from a fight when the police officer was mounted on top of him, beating the fuck out of him without saying who he was? Or was it that the officer said, "I'm a police officer," and then drops his gun, and then Josh picks it up, runs away with it, and then decides, you know what, I'm going to go kill that police officer, and runs back and goes and shoots him execution style, which is what the newspaper said. Now, Josh didn't like that the newspaper had their different account of what had happened, so there is actually a case you can look up, Hatcher versus McShane, 2003, 20 years ago, where Josh tried to sue them for defamation from within prison for getting the case wrong in his mind. But, they probably picked up parts of the story from other people around Omaha who have a vested interest in the facts of the story going their way. You see, because Josh has now been in prison for 45 plus years, right? Now, the charge he was given to get in prison for 45 plus years was first-degree premeditated murder, right? Now, of course, if you were a defense attorney today, you might say, well, of course, the defense to that would be, no, this was manslaughter, and that it was in the heat of the moment, right? And that would be the appropriate charge. And defense would be that he was, in self-defense because he didn't know it was a police officer. And it's 1977 Omaha, and the man just said, "Hey, boy," Of course, he was committing a crime when they first met, but the scene of the crime was over. The policeman had time to help the UPS driver, and then chase down Josh. By the way, this policeman off duty in his own white truck, in his own clothes, right? Nothing on him says police officer, right? And, in Josh's state, I don't know if he would think that anyone who was white and big and male wasn't somehow connected into the oppressive system that he grew up into. But I know that the story, as you could hear it from both sides, would be seen under a different lens after things like the Black Lives Matter movement, and us seeing how the justice system, unfairly comes down on African American men a lot. For instance, if you were to read the sentencing, the transcript of the sentencing for Josh Hatcher, you'll see that the judge actually states that in the 2 seconds it took between the gun coming out and the gun, going off and this officer being shot, that Josh Hatcher had the time that was necessary to add the stipulation of it being premeditated murder. 2 seconds to premeditated murder. And I'm looking at that transcript and I'm like, well, that's bullshit. That wouldn't stand in today's courts. But see, the problem is, in the 45 plus years that he's been in prison, Josh has gone from a 3rd grade reading level to a 4th grade reading level. He has some pretty serious learning disability. And so that when he tries to write his own appeals, he makes mistakes. A lot of these technicalities are, you have a certain amount of time to do this type of appeal, and if you don't do it within this certain time window, we don't have to look at the substance of what you're saying, that you were charged with something that the facts don't bear out, even as stated by the judge in the case. We don't have to look at the substance if you keep on appealing and there's technicalities that say, well, we don't even have to listen to you. And so if you were to look up other cases associated with him, there's news stories about how he's tried to appeal and been denied on technicalities. Because nobody in the justice system wants the man who killed a police officer to go free. But at this point, if he had originally been charged with something appropriate, like manslaughter, he would have gotten a maximum of, say, 20 years. And he has been in prison now for 45 years because a judge said that 2 seconds was enough to form premeditation for murder, when what the guy wanted to do was steal a box off a UPS truck to sell whatever was in it for drugs, got run off, and an off-duty police officer in vigilante mode hunted him down, and in the course of beating him, lost his gun, got shot, and the lens that I see this, how I frame it together now, I feel like an injustice was done, even though Josh was wrong, right? And whether or not there was premeditation and whether or not it was in the commission of another crime are things that we'd love to see battled out in court. But Josh, with his third grade reading level, was given a plea deal which took nothing off the table. It had nothing to benefit him in it. He was just told, boy, you better sign this. And so he's been appealing now for almost 5 decades. And no, what they originally went with is what they're going to go with, because they cannot tell their community, these members of the justice system, that they're going to allow the guy who killed a police officer any respite. What sort of signal would that send to law enforcement? That we don't love them, I do think that he did wrong, and I do think that he may have deserved 20 years for the appropriate charge if he had taken a plea deal on that. But to say that this guy deserved life without parole it's a big stretch. And it's hard to want to do the right thing when he did do a wrong thing. His actions did result in the death of someone. He killed someone on that day. And so you're not going to find a lot of sympathy for him as far as the sentencing guidelines and whatnot. But it's not black and white to me. I see a lot of gray area here. And I see that he got railroaded into a plea that was probably, given to him without the ability to really understand what they were doing. And if you want any more proof about how little deliberation was put into this plea deal that he got, just look at the timeline of the entire court case and how quickly it happened. Like, this community needed justice right away. And so, weeks later, boom, 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 boom. They've got a sentence all ready for him. And the community gets to know that the person who caused the death of their beloved deputy, he gets to go away forever. And, yeah, America. Today, a case such as this wouldn't even have, the trial begin until a year later. And lots of hearings, evidentiary hearings, would have happened prior to that. Lots of actual thought would have been put into what will decide the fate of a man for the rest of his life. And at this point, the guy has been in prison for longer than I've been alive. And I know the light's dim on me right now, but you can see the gray hair growing out the side of my head. like, it's hard for me to imagine that this guy's been in prison since before the day I was born. Whew. I look back at my whole life, and I'm like, wow. That whole time, they had him locked away. No chance of getting out or having any fair shot at justice. Just locked away forever. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Josh Hatcher. If you like, just go ahead and put his very unique spelling of his name in Google and read some of the other things that have come up over the decades. But just know that everyone in Omaha, from the judges to the police to the media, has a vested interest in the story going one way and not the other. And if you pull the transcript from the court case, you'll see a completely different story than is in the media. Because, what they want to put out to the public is that this is black and white, literally black and white. No reason for anybody to look into the context of what was going on that day. No reason to look into why an officer might have been doing something that led to his own demise when he maybe should have called somebody who was on duty or, announced that he was an officer. This was, mind you, 1977. We didn't have cop procedurals where everybody knows this now. Yeah. Anyways. That's what's been on my mind the better part of this month.